in British TV, man.
Pakistan at 65%. 65%, meaning more likely than not, you're having sex with your cousin, and if you're not, you're the weird one. Compared to Christian countries, whew, let's take a look. Usually less than 1%.
Less than 1%, guys. But it gets worse. Why do Christians have less than 1% inbreeding rates? We'll see.
Daniel, the floor is...
What if I told you that right now, you were looking into the eyes of one of the deadliest, most unforgiving, avarice-fueled monsters in the entire Elder Scrolls franchise?
What?
Now, don't you laugh. I know he may look like an illiterate garden gnome, but this infamous NPC, called Gaynor, is the Tamrielic equivalent of a nuclear weapon. A little guy so bloodthirsty, so vengeful, petty, and lucky that he probably has a higher player kill count at this point than Dagoth Ur himself. Now you may be thinking, how? He appears to be a basic beggar, a local loser that can't even afford shoes. Well, it's only after a brief and strange interaction with the player that Gaynor reveals his true nature.
You should run now.
As an Easter egg endgame level secret boss. In my opinion, the most difficult fight in all of Morrowind, and it's not particularly close. A fourth wall breaking joke between the developers and the players that inadvertently began a long-running tradition that has since given us fans of Tamriel some of our most beloved moments. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the NPCpedia. This is a video series where we take a look at the people, the fun and interesting side characters, both big and small, that inhabit our virtual worlds, and try to get to the bottom of what makes each one of them truly special. I am Ghost, your host as always. I want to give a huge thank you to all of my patrons who support this channel away from the unpredictability of YouTube. And now, let's waste no time as we head back to the magical land of Morrowind to relearn one of the most important life lessons there is. Always be careful of who you make fun of in middle school.
Gotta keep an eye on this spot.
Morrowind is, here in the 2020s, often talked about like it's this ancient papyrus scroll of an RPG. A deep, philosophical, and strange relic that, if you can comprehend, will reward you with some forbidden wisdom from an age of gaming long past. And while I guess it's kind of true, I mean, it's a great game, allow me to remind all of you guys that Morrowind is not only not that old, it's also full of extremely silly, lighthearted, and straight-up stupid stuff that I have occasionally highlighted on this very channel. And if these two components, these kind of two tones, are both vital to understanding the spirit of this game and truly loving it, as I believe that they are, there is honestly perhaps no greater bridge between them, no greater ambassador for this entire experience overall than this guy right here. So Gaynor is located in a very unique part of the world, the City of Light, the City of Magic, Mournhold, an area that a brand new player is very unlikely to journey to until the late game, as it is the setting of Morrowind's first expansion pack, called Tribunal, and it's very much designed to be experienced after the base game is already completed. But physically, Mournhold is arranged into this kind of a wheel, with 4 distinct districts. You have the Entry Plaza, the Great Bazaar, the more residential God's Reach, and then to the north, the Mournhold Temple with this grand surrounding courtyard and garden. And it is actually here, in said temple, standing meekly on the side of the central path, where we find this killing machine just kind of hanging out in the ground. And I've always thought the placement of this NPC is hilarious, because that temple right behind him, that's the home and central base for Al-Malexi, one of the single most influential, powerful, and terrifying godlike characters in all of Elder Scrolls lore. And while there's definitely some other NPCs around walking through this area, they're all affiliated with the temple. They have some power or some status, they have expensive robes and jewelry. So Gaynor, he seems woefully out of place. Now, unsurprisingly, when you're progressing through the main content found in Mournhold, you walk through this specific crossroad many times. But I know that in my first full playthrough, I zipped right past this bum multiple times before ever thinking to talk to him. But as they say, curiosity killed the cat. And once the player gets a little curious as to what this strange little guy is doing here of all places and decides to strike up a conversation, you very quickly see that this Myrrh is a little bit different.
Hello there, Dunmer. Before you take another step, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Gaynor, and I'm an entrepreneur of sorts. I was wondering if I could ask a small favor of you.
Sure. What's the favor?
Glad you asked. As you may have noticed, I'm not looking my best at the moment. Or, shall we say, down on my luck, which is not something I'm used to, let me tell you. At any rate, I'm looking for a little starting capital to get things going more. I've recently arrived myself as well, and I thought you might be able to help me out. Think we could part with, say, 50 gold?
Man, I think many of us would be dubious at trusting a visibly homeless Mer on the streets, claiming that he's an entrepreneur. But at the same time, if you're this far into a playthrough, 50 gold pieces is straight up chump change. So, you know what? No problem, little fella, you take it.
Splendid. I really do appreciate it, and I must say, you're quite the generous soul. In fact, as long as we're talking and getting along so well, do you think maybe you could spot me in another 100? I'm quite sure that I can pay you back in just a few days' time. I've always had excellent luck when it comes to these sort of things. So, what do you say?
I love how here he uses the word spot. I don't know your personal association with that term, but for me, that's how the most loser-ass dudes at my high school would ask for $1 at the local donut shop at lunchtime back in the day. This is certified bum lingo, and notice again that Gaynor mentions the concept of luck. But you know what? Sure, okay, take another 100 gold. And by the divines, this guy is still not satisfied. Like a piranha getting a whiff of blood, he needs more. Much, much more. Asking now for 1,000 gold, and I do think that this is the point where a majority of players going into this thing blind would probably be like, alright, we had fun, little man, but that's enough.
Oh, come on. We've come this far with it. You've already proven yourself to be the generous type. Why not go that extra step? Really impressive. It's not like I'm asking you for your firstborn child here. Seriously, think about it for a moment.
No, I really mean it.
I am speaking the same language, right? I mean, you understand what I'm saying? Well, then why can't you seem to understand that I need this money? Give it to me.
Then you hit him with the no, stop asking, and he flies off the rails.
No, you don't say no to me. No one says no to Gaynor. Oh, don't you think I'll forget about this. I'll remember you, Dark Elf. I'll get you for it. I can promise you that.
Okay, Squirt. Sure you will. And so ends your conversation. Close the tab. The Nerevarine carries on with his day, leaving this strange little elf in the rearview mirror. But you might be curious, what if you continue to fund Gaynor's mysterious enterprise? What if you give him that 1,000 gold? Well, of course, that's still not enough, and soon he hikes it up to 10,000, and after that, a staggering 1 million gold. And even if your Nerevarine is falling that hard and you try to hand him that much money in one lump sum, he says that he doesn't appreciate you mocking him, that no one walks around with $1 million in their pocket and stomps off pissed. Anyway, there truly is no winning with this guy at all. And the next time you come around the temple after this interaction, I'm gonna admit it's a slightly troubling sight. Gaynor vanishes completely. And I don't know, he did seem pretty confident. And they always say don't judge a book by its cover. And what do you know? Just 2 in-game days later, at the very same spot, you have quite the surprise waiting for you. Gaynor is back, though you might not recognize him as he's dripped head to toe in his Gucci full ebony kit complete with sword and shield, and he approaches you with this malicious glee.
Well. Look who it is, my dear friend.
Ghost John.
Just my luck that you should stumble in here. Indeed, it seems my good fortune knows no bounds. Despite my mistreatment at your hands, I've found riches. Been able to influence just about anyone I talk to, and can you believe I've never lost a fight, never even gotten a scratch. Somehow, I don't think I'll have a problem continuing that streak. And I own you.
And without another word shared between you, Gaynor attacks, beginning what is for me, I will say it again, by far the hardest fight of the entire game. Ladies and gentlemen, I am thrilled to share with you all that today's video is sponsored by Raycon. And as difficult as this fight with Gaynor may be, don't you think it would be so much more pleasurable if my Nerevarine was equipped with his Raycon open-ear earbuds? So at the very least, he could listen to some bangers or his favorite podcast while remaining totally connected to his surroundings as he got whooped on. But in all seriousness, ever since my first collab with Raycon just earlier this year, I have been using their earbuds literally every day while working on these videos for you guys to enjoy. And if you look at the calendar, well, by Azura, Black Friday is right around the corner. That means all Raycon products are up to 30% off site-wide. So, this is the sign that you've been waiting for. It's the perfect time to upgrade your audio setup or get an early start on holiday gifting. Just click that link down in the description or go to buyraycon.com/ghostcharmopen to save and support this channel directly. Again, that is buyraycon.com/ghostcharmopen for fat savings. Thank you so much, Raycon, for sponsoring this video. And now, back to the action.
2, 2.
Now, before we dig into the absolutely horrible experience of actually fighting this NPC, don't you think that this interaction is, well, a little odd? I mean, it's funny, it's entertaining, it's unpredictable and all those things, but it almost feels like a little bit too specific, like it's referencing something that you don't fully understand. Well, that is where the fourth wall-breaking aspect of Gaynor comes into play, and to put it very, very simply, this NPC, this little quest, was created by Bethesda as a response, a direct response to one of the core elements of the entire Elder Scrolls fandom, racism. What? Now, let me explain. So the base game of Morrowind was released 1,000 years ago in the spring of 2002, and upon release it was generally loved by everyone far and wide. But back in the day, the official Bethesda forums was the place where fans came together to discuss the game's mechanics, to complain about stuff, share modding information, primitive early memes, and whatever else. And of all of the opinions that were voiced around that time, one of the loudest and most consistent was that out of the 10 playable races, the Bosmer, the Wood Elves specifically, were just a little bit unserious. As I so skillfully alluded to a moment ago, their voice acting was just absurd.
In the waning years of the third era of Tamriel, a prisoner born on a certain day to uncertain parents was sent under guard without explanation to Morrowind. I take comfort in knowing you're not long for this world. Why must you people always pick on the small ones? Go away! I don't like you much.
Look, none of the other races sound this ridiculous, not even remotely close. And beyond sounding like Professor Fink, the character oh my god, I mean, a few of them can look alright actually, but the most infamous ones look like Gaynors, a straight up garden gnome, or even worse, like some geeked up aliens. Add on to this that the Bosmer are the shortest race in the game by a mile, with males clocking in around 5'3", 5'4", and the very first NPC you encounter after creating your character and being kind of let loose in the world is fucking Fargoth, a guy known specifically for being a nerdy little loser. And then within the following 5 minutes, you meet the still warm corpse of Tarhiel, an idiot Bosmer wizard who accidentally dies messing around with some flight scrolls, squealing like an asshole all the way down. It's a rough first impression to say the very least, and as you explore the world, the Wood Elf stereotypes do not necessarily improve. Now, in all fairness, I think the female Bosmer look much, much better while being taller and slightly less silly sounding, and honestly every race in this game has their fair share of awkwardness, but it just didn't matter. The forums and the general discourse back in 2002 was very quickly awash with tongue-in-cheek anti-Bosmer sentiment. However, that, my friends, is only half of the Gaynor equation, because as you likely know, the only thing Elder Scrolls fans do faster than engage in fantasy-themed racism is complain. To point at features or items or changes from the previous title and claim that everything new is terrible and everything old is good. And though this sounds like heresy today, back in 2002 there was a very vocal minority that said Morrowind had ruined what Daggerfall had established, that this new game was too streamlined, too simplistic, made for the normies, and lacked the hardcore nature of what came before. Now, this was mainly felt in specific skills being removed, like climbing, swimming, etiquette and streetwise, thaumaturgy, etc. But one thing that a healthier majority of Morrowind players agreed and proclaimed proudly was just awful and useless and stupid was the player attribute luck. Now, luck, officially, is stated to affect everything your character does in a small way, but mechanically is the only attribute that doesn't govern the effectiveness of any specific skill. It's also the only attribute that is unaffected by your race, gender, class, and birth sign choices upon character creation, with 40 being the default value and 50 being the highest you can get it if you select it as a favored attribute. And unlike all the other attributes, it can only be raised by 1 point per level if you choose to invest your very precious points into it. Now, for years and years, people misunderstood luck, thinking it was supposed to make your Nerevarine more, well, lucky when it came to loot and quest rewards and money laundering and stuff like that. But that is just straight up not how it works. Luck's value is much more subtle, where seeing its effectiveness is honestly kind of impossible while you are entrenched with a single character. What luck does do is ever so slightly raise your chance of succeeding on the numerous invisible dice rolls that happen all throughout the game. Everything from landing an attack, avoiding an attack, enchanting an item, to successfully casting a spell, everything gets a tiny little boost the higher your luck stat is. More specifically, it adds about half as much of a bonus to one of those rolls as that given skill's primary attribute does, if that makes sense. But back in 2002, I mean, the game was brand new. There was no comprehensive wiki or database or YouTube videos about how these mechanics all worked. And so just like the Bosmer, luck was routinely trashed as useless and a joke. And listen, from the very beginning of their existence up to today, for all their faults, Bethesda has always been a company that pays attention to fan discourse, oftentimes even commenting directly on it in their games. I mean, go watch my video on Mayik the Liar. It's Todd Howard's Persona. And so in the months after Morrowind's release, as the developers planned the game's first expansion, someone on that team, and they had a sinister-ass idea to create a single NPC that would spite all of those sour grapes as vocal fans. To prove the potential of these two maligned features with one unstoppable godlike murderer running solely on 4-leaf clover oil screaming at you for gold, and thus Gaynor was born. So, alright, now that we covered that, back to this moment where you re-enter the courtyard. This guy is not only running at you drip the hell out. His stats have climbed from pathetic, a level 1 pauper, to a level 99 mob boss Thanos, sporting an absurd 155 strength, 500 HP, which is more than Dagoth and 255 luck. But it gets worse. He's equipped with a special birth sign spell called Gaynor's Abilities, which automatically grants him an additional jaw-dropping 500 luck, 80 to 100% resist magicka, 50 to 100% spell reflection, and just for fun, 1 point of restore health. If you're keeping track, that's an eye-watering 755 total luck. For reference, most builds that aren't focusing on this stat are likely to be around 50, maybe 60 or 65 luck at this point, making this demon nearly impossible for you to hit with straight-up melee attacks, while giving him a statistical guarantee that he's not only going to always hit you, he's going to hit you like a damn bus. Honestly, in my opinion, Gaynor is a cheater. He's bullshit. Ravenous in his pursuit of personal justice. Blindingly fast, hitting you like Mike Tyson and as slippery as a ghost. The unsuspecting player is going to be killed in seconds. I'm not exaggerating. And damn, that spell reflection is underrated in how evil it is. I can't tell you how many times I paralyzed or firebombed myself while just trying to make this stupid video. It's insane. At least Bethesda was merciful enough to have something this broken remain totally optional, because this is a fight that even the most seasoned Morrowind player has to approach with a plan, a strategy. Personally, I like to think about it like the numbers game that Morrowind really is. If this guy wants to cheat, then shit, you gotta cheat too. So maybe you go off and create the strongest, most expensive spells you can that reduce enemy luck, as well as some potions that increase your luck to begin to even those scales. Maybe you want to try to drain his endurance, slow him down, increase your strength by hundreds, and hope you whop him a few times. Based on your build, you gotta find a way to inflate yourself just like your opponent is. I've also had a lot of success in the past by just summoning an entire gang of goons to zerg him and tire him out as you whack him from behind. Then if you're feeling cheesy, you can lure him over to the nearby water, find a way to drain his fatigue, and just watch him drown himself. You can try to jump up on the roof, kite the hell out of him, spam heals. I even found this guy on Reddit who used the power of alcoholism to kill Gaynor, which is an entirely viable thing for any fight in Morrowind. This is one of those video game bosses that's super difficult and irritating, but not impossible by any stretch. For this video, I was extremely determined to kill Gaynor with my bare fists for the first time ever. And after failure after failure after failure, I think 27 or 28 deaths in a row, I was finally able to pummel this
I play
gilded
for
rat into submission,
sometimes,
which is
I can't play
absolutely
IT.
one of my most satisfying Marwyn moments of all time. On his corpse, you find his full ebony set, his sword, his shield, some fancy clothes, and a smart little necklace that offers you but a fraction of Gaynor's incredible power. And that, my friends, is
Holy.
it. Quest complete, boss conquered. And if by any chance someone from the Marwyn development team is watching
I'll
this
play.
video right now, I want you to know that I love you, but damn do I hate you. You not only made your point, but you continue to make it very clear all these years later. Now, if this NPC existed just here in a vacuum, I do think by now he may have fallen into relative obscurity. But as I mentioned in the opening, this bug, for whatever reason, ended up being a trailblazer, birthing a tradition followed in Oblivion and Skyrim of having very similar mysterious ebony-clad knights to throw the player a super stiff and very surprising challenge. Oblivion's version is known as Umbra, a female Bonhomme warrior that's actually a part of the Daedric quest Clavicus Vile. She wields a sword of the very same name, which is actually also Morrowind. And while she isn't like an endgame Gaynor level challenge, it's definitely a rough encounter, especially for lower level players. But I will say, she is very easily cheesed, even by a level 1 player who's trying to get that strong sword. And she's also kind of ruined by Oblivion's shoddy level scaling system, which is too bad, but still an item. Then in Skyrim, we have what is probably the most widely known and loved of these 3 Black Knights period, the Ebony Warrior. An incredibly powerful Redguard man that appears only once the Dragonborn has achieved the very high level of 80 and asks the player for an honorable duel at the top of the world. Super mysterious, amazing NPC with a crazy cinematic and brutally difficult fight that for many players does act as the final challenge before they can say they've reached 100% completion of Skyrim. And man, I cannot wait to see what version of this archetype we get in Elder Scrolls 6 10 years from now. Personally, I wouldn't mind one bit if it leaned a little bit more into the humor and otherworldly levels of difficulty that started it all. About 20 minutes ago, I said that Gaynor was kind of the perfect bridge between the 2 tonal strengths of Marwyn, and I just hope that now you can see what I mean. This guy is a true wolf in sheep's clothing, a character that carries a strange, sinister aura that raises tons of questions about who he really is, how he got so lucky, and how the hell you're supposed to finally kill him. But once you uncover the real-world truth of his creation, it's hard not to crack a smile and just kind of love this whole game and its makers and its community a little bit more. In a way, he's kind of like Frankenstein's monster, stitched together by the fans' own joking negativity and bigotry, activated by some salty developer who wanted to inflict a little bit of misery on us, and oh, how beautifully it all panned out. So the next time you find yourself in the city of Mournhold, just tread carefully. Be mindful of who you give your full attention to. Because here, in the land of Tamriel, even the most pathetic, broke, boob-looking goober could very well be feeling particularly lucky and end up acting as your personal executioner.
Someone scratch my back. Never miss.
Only 60 seconds left.
In the harsh, frozen land of Skyrim, right here, just north of the iconic city of Whiterun, we find an extremely odd sight to behold. A small, colorfully clad man stuck with a broken wagon wheel on the side of the road who seems to be squealing and complaining into the wind at maximum volume. An alarmingly out-of-place NPC, to say the very least, and a little fella who just so happens to be one of my favorite Elder Scrolls characters of all time, Cicero, Fool of Hearts. This is a demented, meticulous, and frankly misunderstood jester on a long, peculiar journey. A foreigner far from home with a bizarre occupation who turns more than a few heads in these parts for sure, but don't be deceived. This NPC might look a little bit goofy, but he is far more dangerous than you think. Cicero is a cold-blooded killer that has thoroughly lost his mind. A loyal servant of the mysterious cult of assassins known as the Dark Brotherhood, and a character that by the end of his questline is either dead in the ground or your very best friend. There's no in between. And as for the cargo he's hauling with him, well, let's just say it's best not to get too close. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the NPC Feed, a video series where we take long, hard looks at the people, the characters that inhabit all of our virtual worlds, and just try to understand what makes each of them special. I am Ghost, your host as always. I want to give a quick, sincere thank you to all of my patrons over on Patreon who support this channel just away from YouTube and its tyranny. You guys help me out a lot more. And now, without further ado, join me as we return to our favorite land of Tamriel and learn all about the singularly irritating and incredible Cicero.
The current score is 0-2.
There's something romantic about living life with purpose, having some kind of quest to complete or a thing that gets you out the door and on the path of adventure. We understand that very well as the protagonist in a game like Skyrim, but Cicero here is a character whose own fierce personal purpose has taken him a very long way as well. Cicero is an Imperial, originally from the Imperial province of Cyrodiil, just to the south, that has risked life and limb for months, maybe even a year, dragging this mysterious cart all over the damn place. He is on a mission that in his eyes is life or death, not necessarily just for himself, but for the guild that he calls home, the Dark Brotherhood. Now I know that sounds kind of mysterious, and we will get into all of it, but I just love when there are smaller scale NPCs given any kind of purpose like this. A thing that they are independently doing in the world instead of just standing around like a cardboard cutout waiting to serve the player mechanically in some way. Protagonists of their own little private stories. It's good stuff. Well, as I alluded to, you are very likely to encounter Cicero pretty early on in the Skyrim playthrough, given his proximity to the city of Whiterun, the undeniable home base for the first 3,000 or so hours of the game, as well as the obvious intro area where you are going to be learning the ropes. But this location tells me Bethesda wanted to make sure a high percentage of players would find this encounter, and let's be honest, it's pretty hard to miss. The image of this costumed entertainer all by himself in the middle of a frozen countryside is just downright absurd. It's Renaissance painting-esque, it's inherently humorous, and your imagination can't help but be sparked, hungry to understand what the hell is going on here when you first approach.
Ah! Bother and me funnel! Stuck here! Stuck! And my poor mother. Oh, poor Cicero is stuck. Can't you see? I was transporting my dear, sweet mother. Well, not her corpse. She's quite dead. I'm taking mother to a new home, a new crypt, but... Ah! Wagon wheel! Damn this wagon wheel! Don't you see?
Well, my god, what a voice! Makes fingernails on a chalkboard sound like Ragnar the Red by comparison.
Go to the farm, the Lorius farm, just over there, off the road. Talk to Lorius. He has tools. He can help me. He won't. He refuses.
I don't think it's a stretch you can tell that this guy is nuts. Burying his mother in a jester suit? With this personality? Yeah, no, hell no. But nearby at the Lorius farm, we can also speak with the fella that Cicero's complaining about here, who has plenty to complain about himself.
Oh, for the love of Mara, what now? Crazy fool's already asked me about 5 times. Seems he's not satisfied with my answer. Have you seen the man? He's completely out of his head. A jester here in Skyrim? Ain't been a merry man in these parts for 100 years. And he's transporting some giant box. Says it's a coffin, and he's going to bury his mother. Mother, my eye. You could have anything in there. War contraband, weapons, skooma. Ain't no way I'm getting involved in any of that.
Now, I don't blame this guy one bit. These are definitely strange times here in Skyrim. So, from here, the quest allows you to choose. You can either side with Lorius and get rid of Cicero by complaining to a patrolling guard about his conduct, or you can convince the farmer to kind of get over his suspicion and help the jester repair the cart so he can just be on his way peacefully. But regardless of which you choose, you walk away a few coins richer, the jester quickly vacates the area, and, well, honestly, that's kinda it. This little quest is over as soon as it starts, and you are left scratching your head just trying to understand who and what, and mostly why. However, if you side with Vantis here and get Cicero arrested, let's just say it doesn't work out well for the farmer. there was something more to that little goofball, something potentially sinister, something that you really want to know, but you're just gonna have to wait for the inevitable day where your paths cross again.
Don't have to be a...
Be wary. No timeline
Of all the different
exists
guilds
where
and
Magneto
factions in the Elder
yields.
Scrolls franchise, the Dark Brotherhood has always been a surefire fan favorite. I mean, an underground network of void-worshipping assassins for hire that operate in the shadows all throughout the continent of Tamriel. Cult-like in nature, secretive and family-oriented, with odd, ancient ways of going about their business of killing. But these ways, the customs of the Brotherhood, are actually vitally important to understanding Cicero as a character at all, so let's dig into this a bit. Now, structurally, the Brotherhood works like this. If a person somewhere in the world wants another person killed, they have to perform a private ritual known as the Black Sacrament. This entails gathering body parts and bones of the dead to create like a crude effigy of the intended victim, lighting some candles to set the mood, stabbing said effigy with a dagger bathed in nightshade petals, and last but not least, whispering their prayer of murder to an entity known as the Night Mother. Amongst the complex hierarchy of the Dark Brotherhood, this Night Mother is its undisputed leader, and to put it plainly, she herself is dead. Very dead, an old shriveled up corpse, really, but one that is extremely powerful. Her immortal spirit lives within the void and hears all these ritualized requests, and after a Black Sacrament is completed, the Night Mother's corpse acts as a conduit for that spirit, whispering the details directly into the mind of a single specialized member of the guild known as the Listener. The Listener then relays that request to a speaker, and they then contact the sanctuary closest to the target, draw up a contract, and the murder is carried out. Now, it's a little bit of ritualistic bureaucracy, sure, but hey, for thousands and thousands of years, the Brotherhood was a well-oiled and lethal machine adhering to this very strict structure. However, around the time of Skyrim in the 4th era, the Brotherhood is in serious trouble. Some might even say they are on the brink of total extinction, and the one person alive with the potential to preserve all these old ways and structures, well, we just met him. Cicero is carting around his dead mother, all right. That's the Night Mother, transporting the sacred corpse all the way here from the troubled land of Cyrodiil in the hopes of bringing her to safety, and in his eyes, saving the Dark Brotherhood. So at this point in history, there is only one single Brotherhood sanctuary operating in all of Tamriel that happens to be right here in Skyrim. Now, we're going to come back to this stuff later on, but after this initial encounter, Cicero disappears completely from the game world until you get entangled with this faction yourself. So as you adventure around as the Dragonborn, do various hero things, you will inevitably begin to hear some strange rumors. Rumors about a cursed home in the city of Windhelm to the north, where a child is attempting to perform the Black Sacrament and summon the Brotherhood. Now, this is just too strange to ignore, so once you look into it, you indeed find this Aretino kid wishing for the death of his abusive orphanage master at Riften, but complaining that the Night Mother hasn't been responding. But when he sees you, of course, he takes you to be the help he's been wanting and says he's going to reward you for completing the contract. Now, who am I to pass on the opportunity to go murder an old woman in broad daylight? You claim your reward, move on with your life, but in the in-game days that follow, you will inevitably be kidnapped. The Brotherhood considers what you did poaching their work, and the leader of that final sanctuary, a woman named Astrid, wants you to thus kill one of 3 random people to make things even on their accounts. If you then show the appropriate brand of bloodlust, you are welcomed into their little family of killers, and the Dark Brotherhood questline is officially underway. You quickly get sent out on some simple murder business, which is of course a great time, and after just a few assignments as you get to know your coworkers, guess who arrives at the sanctuary?
Risk disobedience.
Maximum force!
And we'll see who gets punished.
Oh, be quiet.
By the eye of Agamotto!
Man has had a long journey. At least be civil. Mr. Cicero, I, for one, am delighted you and the Night Mother have arrived. Your presence here signals a welcome return to tradition.
Now, to understand why Cicero's presence here is at all contentious, we need to talk a bit more about what drove him out of Cyrodiil in the first place. And conveniently, once he arrives in the sanctuary, Cicero leaves a few personal journals around his sleeping area, which chronicle those very events in flavorful first-person detail. Now, these journals are everything to understanding this character on a deeper level, and honestly, they contain some of my favorite lore in all of Skyrim. They reveal that at some point a few years back, Cicero was not the screeching, irritating jester, but seemingly a normal, highly intelligent, and self-reflective member of the Dark Brotherhood. A rank-and-file assassin working out of the sanctuary that was once located in Bruma in northern Cyrodiil. Now, this of course means he probably went through a similar recruitment process that we just did. He murdered someone in his personal life, got the attention of the guild, and was embraced into this family. But one of the main themes across all these journals is this growing amount of chaos surrounding the various Dark Brotherhood sanctuaries, not just in Cyrodiil, but all over Tamriel. Chaos probably kickstarted by the insane Dark Brotherhood questline in the previous game of Oblivion, but that's a story for another time. The unrest resulted in many branches closing down operations, consolidating their rosters of assassins, or even worse, being discovered and raided by brigands or looters. Cicero's home sanctuary in Bruma was one that got completely wiped out in this way, with our guy being left as the sole survivor. Probably pretty traumatic, and then he had no choice but to relocate to the closest active sanctuary to the southeast, in the city of Shadenhall, where he was welcomed warmly. But really, the way that Cicero writes about the Brotherhood in these journals gives the impression that joining the guild saved his life in some way. Maybe literally, maybe spiritually, maybe both. But there really is this level of unwavering devotion that comes through. Religious, zealous in tone, and that is a key ingredient of this character. So he goes on to describe killing the Baroness and even murdering the current champion of the arena within the Imperial City, which is a kind of funny Easter egg. He says that he posed as a starstruck fan before following and slashing the champion's throat somewhere out in the forest, which is an obvious shout out to the adoring fan NPC I made a video on a few years back, and kind of a humorous revenge fantasy for Bethesda in a way because of all the abuse that us players inflicted on that guy in Oblivion. Now, some people have taken this to hint that these two characters are one and the same, but nah, get the hell out of here. They're not even the same race, the timeline doesn't work at all, just no. But remember that whole important Night Mother and listener dynamic we touched on? Well, that part of the Brotherhood's operation also happened to take place right here in the Imperial Province back in the day, just to the south in the city of Bravo. But Cicero describes violence and chaos that was quickly overtaking that city as well, with some drug lords warring with each other. It got so bad, the Night Mother had to be physically rescued and brought to the city of Shadenhall. However, in that operation, and this is massive, the current listener was murdered. An absolutely devastating, unfathomable loss, because without someone to interpret the Black Sacraments, work and income for the Brotherhood would completely dry up overnight, and this already ailing guild could face total annihilation. The journals go on to describe 2 long, agonizing months waiting for the Night Mother to speak to someone, to anyone, as the Brotherhood's numbers dwindled and dwindled every day, until finally, the remaining leaders decided to appoint a, quote, keeper in the meantime, a protector of the Night Mother's casket that would dedicate the rest of their lives tending to the corpse, washing her with oils, keeping her free of bugs and vermin, and generally ensuring her physical safety until a new listener emerged, and of course, the man they chose for the job was the ever-devout Cicero. Now, pausing for a second, I want it to be abundantly clear that Cicero's not a good person. Morality in the Dark Brotherhood is like morality in the Mafia. To be there at all, you have to kind of be a piece of shit, a little bit crazy, or preferably both. Now, Cicero has noble qualities, for sure, deep down, like his loyalty, but all of his life and deeds take place in the sinful realm of murder and torture, so just keep that all in mind. Now, it has been well documented on this channel over the years by me that I have a thing for jesters in both fiction and history. The types of characters that playfully balance buffoonery and wisdom, falsehood and truth, loyalty and treachery. I think it is just the coolest. And here, we have a man who certainly looks the part in the present, bells and all, but, well, looks can be deceiving. And although it pains me to say it, reading these journals also reveals the fact that Cicero, he's no fool at all. By taking on this role of keeper, he vowed to put down the dagger for good, leaving his assassination career behind, and as a final gift, was given one last job: The target of his contract happened to be an unnamed court jester, a victim that Cicero savored like a succulent meal. He took hours and hours murdering the poor merryman slowly, and as he finally drew his last breaths, the fool couldn't stop. A harrowing sound that Cicero never forgot. The journals go on to describe the further unraveling of the Brotherhood, infighting, paranoia, abandonment, disappearances, until eventually Cicero was yet again all alone, living in total isolation deep underground with the Night Mother's coffin, begging her every day to speak to him and save the guild, save his brothers and sisters, but she remains silent. He seems to have then lost track of time completely, falling into a trance-like state of growing madness. I mean, at one point, he wrote plainly in his journal, "I think back fondly on my hours with the jester, his laughter, his screams, his pitiful cries, and then, as the end drew near, his laughter once more, merry in death as well as life. I was honored to know him." He then wrote of a deafening silence, of hatred, of rage, of love, a silence so profound and encompassing that it eventually transformed into a quiet, comforting laughter, laughter that grew louder and louder and louder until the laughter was similarly deafening. He thought it must be his dear bloody jester visiting him from the void, keeping him company, but in reality, of course, it's him. His obsession with this final kill, combined with profound loneliness and grief, it all eclipses his own personality. He morphs into a caricature of his final victim, and that means donning the garb, speaking in rhymes, and of course adopting this iconically shrill voice which mirrors the screeching death rattle of that poor, poor fool. Now, my goodness, this is some phenomenal lore, man. Absolute cinema. If I ever in the past had any disappointment about this character not being like an actual jester, it was all mended with these journals and then some. But I think it's really the way that this is communicated that makes it even more immersive and a treat to uncover yourself. Not just because of like the first-person narrative format, which is a ton of fun to consume, but because these journals are just sitting there on the damn table, man. Completely optional to pick up and dig into. Simply brilliant.
Sure you've got the right spice?
Ladies and gentlemen, this video is once again sponsored by me.
What?
That's right, son, you do not have to skip this ad because I am here to peddle my personal wares, my creations in the form of high-quality printed and embroidered t-shirts, hoodies, hats, sweaters, and so much more. TheGhostShop.com is your official web store for all things Ghost Charm related. Our best seller, the Gothic G baseball cap, continues to be one of my favorite things I have ever made in my life, but if that's not your speed, there are plenty more jester-style, drenched in lore designs for you to peruse and enjoy. There's even a sweater that's guaranteed to make you just a little bit smarter. And as a special tie-in to today's episode, I am launching a limited run of appropriately themed embroidered void garments. They are simple, they are clean, and they are waiting in the warehouse to drip you out for your next night up in the Cloud District. Now to make this all even sweeter, please use special code CICERO on checkout for a nice fat 10% off your entire order for the next few weeks, maybe a few months. I want to thank you guys for all the amazing support on the Ghost Shop since the site launched back in January. Your continued enthusiasm for this channel is very, very humbling, and I genuinely hope you guys enjoy the goodies.
TheGhostShop.com. Get it while it's hot.
So at that point where Cicero loses his mind and embodies the jester, the Dark Brotherhood honestly is pretty much dead. But the final journals describe Cicero learning of one last sanctuary still carrying out contracts buried in the snowy mountains of Skyrim. So with nothing else to lose, he packs up the Night Mother and begins his journey. However, before departing, he expresses genuine confusion how Astrid Sanctuary could still be up and running without the listener, without the function of the Black Sacrament. That confusion, my friends, is what sparks the conflict at the heart of this questline. Tradition versus survival. You come to learn that this Astrid woman is not one for tradition. She doesn't care about the Night Mother, about the Keeper, about any of the old tenants, and hasn't for some time. We can assume that when the listener was killed a few years back and work dried up, instead of folding like all the other sanctuaries did, Astrid reinvented the place. She took matters into her own hands and found more organic human ways of securing contracts and resources. So at this point, all she cares about is the people in her little family and the continued survival of her enclave, which is great for her, but imagine a character like Cicero showing up, committed body and soul to tradition. Everyone he ever knew killed trying to preserve these things. He himself twisted to the point of no return in his devotion to the Night Mother. I mean, Cicero came all this way for one simple reason: to find the new listener, restore all that lost order, And that simple fact shakes up Astrid's world big time. She understandably feels kind of threatened. But what makes this questline interesting is that no side is completely right or wrong. The ritualistic ways worked for a long time, but they proved an inherent fragility when the last listener was killed. And let's be honest, the fiercest animals in the jungle don't go extinct out of the stubbornness of tradition. They adapt, they change tactics, and find any way they can to survive, just like Astrid has. But Cicero's arrival now gives the Brotherhood an opportunity to make good on that survival, to return to tradition when a listener is found, stronger than before. I really like it, man. I think it's good stuff that as the player, you can have a totally founded, valid opinion on, one way or the other. Well, I'm not going to be walking through every step of the Dark Brotherhood quest, but in essence, Cicero is hesitantly accepted along with the Night Mother. And your work as a murderer continues, but every time you are back around collecting payment or getting your next assignment, you kind of scope out how this guy's fitting in, asking what other members think of the Keeper, as well as all these old legends, and let me tell you, opinions kind of all over the place. But this off-screen tension comes to a real head when Astrid approaches you and asks you to do something that makes me feel like Anakin in Revenge of the Sith.
It's Cicero. Ever since he arrived, his behavior's been, well, erratic would be an understatement.
She wants you to spy on Cicero. She fears he's conspiring to overthrow her power, recruiting others to join him, and instructs you to hide within the Night Mother's coffin to eavesdrop. This is probably the questline's biggest reveal.
Are we alone? Yes. Yes. Alone. Sweet solitude. No one will hear us, disturb us. Everything is going according to plan.
Poor Cicero. Dear Cicero. Such a humble servant. But he will never hear my voice. For he is not
At long last, a listener is found, and of course, in classic Skyrim fashion, it's gotta be you. Now, honestly, I kinda hate this. It would have been a lot cooler to me if the Night Mother was waiting in silence to assess her last remaining children here in Skyrim and ended up picking someone like Nazir or Babette, the little child vampire. Two characters that end up proving their loyalty to tradition in the long run and have already devoted their entire lives to the Brotherhood. But no, even though I joined like 45 minutes ago, it's me. Okay.
Yes, you. You who shares my iron tomb, who warms my ancient bones. I give you this task. Journey to Wallen Road. Speak with Armand Mortier.
What? What treachery? Defiler! Debaser and defiler! You have violated the sanctity of the Night Mother's coffin! Explain yourself! Then, it's true. She's back. Our lady is back. She has chosen a listener. She has chosen you! All hail the listener!
Maybe Cicero was conspiring against Astrid, maybe he wasn't, but a new listener being chosen is a big deal. It's a celebratory distraction from this feud, and after a little back and forth with old Miss Stubborn here, you do follow the Night Mother's orders to meet with this mysterious Mortier fella in an old ruin. This man has correctly performed the Black Sacrament, has been waiting patiently, and let me tell you, he got a big job for the Brotherhood indeed.
The real reason I'm speaking with a cutthroat in the bowels of this detestable crypt, for I seek the assassination of the Emperor.
Now that is a target that could restore the guild's fading reputation in an instant. Cicero's quest in coming all this way suddenly looks like a heroic one to save the Brotherhood and every